Hi there, my name is Megan Wolf. I'm the Young Adult Services Manager at St. Paul's Hollywood Library, and today we're going to do I Can't Believe It's Not Calligraphy, which is basically lettering that looks a lot like calligraphy, but you don't have to buy any of the fancy tools or pens or do any of that. And if you're just practicing, a great tool to start out with are highlighters, because they've got this tip here, so it's a slanted tip, it's not flat. So when you write, you can really focus on making the strokes really bold or really thin. So the first thing I'm going to do is space out what I want to write. I have a terrible habit, as I'm sure many of you do, is I get really excited when I'm going to write or draw something or make a card, and I put the first 3 or 4 letters really, really big because I'm very enthusiastic, and then the last 3 or 4 letters have to get squeezed into a very tiny space because I didn't plan ahead. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do welcome, which is 7 letters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some things that don't roll. My pens are hexagonal, I think they're hexagons. And I'm just going to space my paper out. So 6 pens means 7 spaces. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing's perfect, and that is a-okay. Yeah, see that leaves a little bit too much space on the end, or not enough space on the end. There we go. We want to make sure that E doesn't get squeezed. All right, and then once you've spaced it out, I like to use a pencil. I'm going to use a colored pencil because all of my pencils have disappeared. This always happens to me. And I'm just going to place a little dot at the top and the bottom of each of these to just sort of use them as a guide for myself. Say, hey, this is where each letter is supposed to go. Whoop! Almost lost that. So I'm going to do this in a couple of colors because it'll really help emphasize how these strokes work. So the first one's going to be a W, and I got to fit the W into this little space. So I'm going to put, draw it really, really light, use really, really thin lines because we're going to add everything else in later. I'm just going to really thin, really, really thin. All right, so there's my W. And then I'm going to write the rest of the letters in. And the big important thing is really make sure that there's space. Space between each letter and the next, and space if you're doing E's or A's, making sure that the circle of that E or A is as wide as you can make it without making it look ridiculous. So I'm going to just do really, really light. There's an E, nice and wide. So with calligraphy, the important thing is the strokes. The pressure that you use on your pen controls the amount of ink that's flowing through it. And since we're doing cheat calligraphy, all that means is we're looking at where the ink would be flowing more, and we're just making those lines a little thicker. So you can trace over it. You don't have to touch it if you don't want to. Really light, and just notice where would you be making a downstroke. So this is a downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Then I skip onto the E, up and down, up and down, up, down, up, and sort of sideways down, over, and then just notice where all of those downstrokes are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over and I'm just going to make a little mark. So there's my first downstroke, make a little dot, and then we go up, no downstroke there, hope, there's the second one. Up, no downstroke. All right, so you can see all of these are where I'm making my downstrokes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thicken those lines, and instead of using that finer tip here, we're going to use the wider edge of the highlighter, or if you're using a pencil or a pen, you can just draw the line a little bit wider. So let me show you. So here, if if I was just using a pen. I could just draw a little line for how far I wanted it to be out and then shade everything in between. So let's do that. I made this line a little bit wider than the highlighter is, so I'm just going to go over it twice. If you'll notice, I did connect it a little bit here, but it doesn't go straight from wide to narrow. There's a taper. So if you look at the edges of your lines, like I could do a little better here. I want to do something here on the curves of the W's and just ease it in. Think of it like a wedge, with the point being that fine bit and the wide edge being those downstrokes. So we're going to go up, and I'm just going to make kind of a little triangle right there so you see it kind of curves in, and you can trace over it. So there's the first bit. The next thing you can do is, if you don't like how wide it is, you want to make it wider, you can. If you want to add some flourishes, I can show you how to do that next. So if you need to widen it, make it a little bit wider, just pause the video and go over your downstrokes again and make it a little bit wider. We're going to move on for some flourishes. We're going to make it pretty. So with flourishes, you can be pretty loosey-goosey with flourishes. The only thing I try to remember not to do is have too many swirly flourishes if the end letter is an E, or even if the end letter isn't an E, because then those loops end up looking like E's, so it won't say welcome, it'll say welcome E. And while admittedly that's pretty funny, probably not what you're going for. So what I'm going to do is on the E, instead of doing another big loop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make kind of a smaller circle like this. And just make a little snake. So we've got our little circle, little snake. And you can shade it, because this is all downstroke, baby. All downstroke. Make it wide, make it thin. I'm actually going to make this into like a bud. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to actually switch colors here and just whoop, add some petals. That's just what I feel like doing. You can do something else. You can make little hash lines. Because I'm using green and I want to kind of stick with this kind of growing theme, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of that pink again, and I'm going to put some dots in because pink is a great contrasting color. So I'm actually just going to put it in those loops. So in the O, the L, and both E's. And that's pretty. I'm going to do some kind of hash marking here. I'm going to make a little loop, whoop, and then I'm just going to whoop, whoop, make two little hashes. And I can make that a little wider if I want to. Don't have to. So then there's that first W. If you want to make that into a bud, you can. If you want to make that into a flower or leaves, you can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn these dots into flowers. So I'm just going to add little, and I'm going to do up and down really long skinny S. So just use the tippity tip. We're going to do here to here. So there's really long, really skinny S, and note where your downstrokes are going to be once you turn it back towards you, which for me is going to be from here all the way over. And I'm just going to mark it. So you can see there. And then I'm going to fill in that little bit of white space that I used. But that is the long and short of it. That's cheat calligraphy. Just really focusing on where the pen goes up and where it goes down, and kind of making it your own. So if you want to share anything, we have a Twitter, we have a Facebook, CCPL has lots of social media. You can post what you did and tag us, or if you just want to stay home and practice, that's good too. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good day.